to free Florida, where we're free to ban books if you're the governor. You're free to protest if you're the governor. Let's free the Tampa Five, and let's free the rotation. I didn't want to get too political at the very beginning of the day, but that kind of bugs me that here we are in this state that supposedly is so free, and yet we're knocking down free speech now. I mean, we're already knocking down other free stuff like plants, right? And that kind of thing. And now we're going ahead and doing that. But in the meantime, let's get into the introductions. Hey, my name is Gary Stein. I'm your political director for Suncoast NORML. That sounds less like applause and more like somebody flushing a toilet. We got to fix that sound effect. Yeah, oh, lovely. And I'm also the master of public health. Down below me, we have our deputy director and our engineer and master of business administration, Carlos Angel Hermida.
Oh, hey. Thank you, Ray. Thank you.
And to my right, coming to us from beautiful Anne Arundel County, above the Beltway, where he hits them below the Beltway, our executive director, Christopher Cano. And Chris, we got a special guest today from a special election. Why don't you go ahead and do the introduction?
Well, thank you, Gary. Appreciate that. I want to introduce someone who we have endorsed from Suncoast NORML as someone who we believe will help us reform our medical marijuana system in Florida to improve the patient experience, and who is dedicated to criminal justice reform and protecting the civil rights of all Floridians. And that is Johnny G. Farias, who is running in the special election in House District 118, which is in South Florida. Johnny, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, everyone. If I knew how to write my own intro music, like I had a tiger or something.
Well, we don't have to pay copyrights to those studios, so we kind of use royalty-free stuff here.
There you go.
Yeah, Johnny, you had a long journey over here. You were actually originally born in Ecuador.
Yes.
I see a little bit of that Maya in you. and you went to Brooklyn and the Navy, and now you migrated to Florida.
Well, yes, I did. In fact, the Mayan in me, let me tell you real quick. It's my mom. She's Lebanese. She went to study in Ecuador, and she wanted to study the Indian language Quechua. So she went up to from Guayaquil to Quito, or to the area of Quito, a place called Bahia de Caracas, and that's where she met my dad. So my dad is actually Indian. And I mean, Indian from, tribal and where in the mornings they go down to the plaza and barter. There was no money exchange at that time. It was all bartering. So yeah, that's why I am a lot of Indian. In fact, in my DNA, that DNA test that you sent out, I came back like 63% Indian. So yes.
No, that means your genes are pure. That's basically where it comes down to.
Thank you for that.
And you're also not a politician by nature. You are an electrician by trade.
Yes, sir.
It's good to have a guild member in here, because we're also very pro-union and pro-guild. And it's good to see somebody who works there. And also, it's good to see somebody else from the Miami area who's not Cuban. Sorry, Carlos.
And Johnny's a veteran, and we support our veterans. We work very closely with the Weed for Warriors project. We even have a veteran liaison on our board here at Suncoast NORML. We understand that there are so many sacrifices that are made, and there are wounds and scars that are visible and not visible that our veterans come back with after defending our freedoms and trying to protect our nation. And Johnny, so we thank you for your service as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Just knowing you're an electrician, man. Like my parents love to. Oh, my dog's pulling my cord. My parents love to talk about how I dropped out of college at one point to try to join the real world, and I became an electrician, and just like an apprentice for my neighbor's company. and it made me want to go back to college, and I ended up getting like 3 degrees. So
Oh, there you go.
hard work, man. I couldn't hack it.
Okay. No, understood. You know,
I realize you
you
get a
know,
charge out of being an electrician. There's a good pun for you. But what made you heed the call to go from working man to the world of politics? Because those are 2 different worlds entirely.
well, I was a guardian ad litem at the time. A guardian ad litem is a person that, just for personal knowledge, it's a person that gets appointed by the court system to children that get removed from their homes for whatever reason, whether it be a sexual or battery or any problems at home. The court will appoint a guardian ad litem to those children. While I was doing that, I went to a school. And I saw the kids were standing. Some were standing up, the other half were sitting down doing projects. I just happened to ask, just out of the blue, and the teacher said, "Oh, well, we don't have enough desks and chairs, so we split. We do 2 different projects. For those that are standing up, they'll do that project, and the ones sitting down will do this project." Wow. I said, "Oh, okay." And I really didn't think much of it till on my way back from home, and I'm like, "Hold on." I don't get that. This is that's a third world country problem, not a United States problem. I was rolling by my children's school. They were just doing a new wing, and I saw these desks and chairs in the garbage. I said, "Hey, why not?" I pulled my truck up, attempted to pull them out. The security guard stopped me, who knew me, and said, "Johnny, you can't just take them. Go ask the principal." I went and asked the principal. She said I had to ask the school board. I tried to get a hold of the school board. They never got a hold of me. Who to call back? Johnny Farias. Finally, my son was told me, "Hey, Dad, I was in class, and they said you can get a hold of your state representative." So we looked it up. He was right down the block from where we live, and I went over there. I told him the story. The lady that was there said they're in session right now, but I will let them know. We'll get back to you. Well, 7 months later, those desks and chairs rotted away in the dumpster, and it had me upset. That all because of a phone call that this could have got resolved. So I was angry, and I decided to do something about it. Like my son said, "Dad, sometimes you got to do things on your own." And I took his advice. He was a smart kid, and I did. So I ran. I ran for state rep at that time. Not knowing anything, just green, just out of something had to be done. So that's what got me involved in politics. And I could tell you that what I know now, a phone call could resolve this situation, and those kids could have had extra desks and chairs.
Wow.
One thing you'll notice is that our legislature oftentimes have their priorities kind of mixed up. And I think education is definitely one of those issues where they're thinking more along the lines of the charter schools and the private schools, and then the public schools seem to be going by the wayside. Not only as far as equipment is concerned, but also education is concerned too. And that concerns me, because supposedly this is all about parents' rights and things of that sort. I think that parents seem to have a voice that they think they do.
Well, Gary, I want to chime in on that, because, the politicization of our education system is really at the crux of all these issues that we're facing. For decades. Yeah, I mean,
We lost you there.
Chris, you still there?
Yeah, sorry about that. My computer was running a little slow, but I just want to say that we got to stop the politicization of education. I mean, for decades, kids came up and they were taught history. They understood why things happened, why we had the civil rights movement, why we had a movement for equal rights for women, why we have a movement for equal rights for everybody, regardless of who they love or who they choose to love. And in the grand scheme of all this, we now have an administration that wants to backpedal on so many years of progress, because they see an electorate that won't support their policies. And that's why we have this politicization of education. Johnny, how do you feel about the way things have gotten so political?
Well, look, I can tell you that parents think they have rights. They don't. I remember when our current governor had given parents a a freedom a parent bill of rights, and then the year after he said, well, they can only read these books, or they can only do this, or they can only say that. So it's he contradicted himself. No, parents don't have rights they think they do.
And now we have a special election coming up, and you had the opportunity to go ahead and put your hat in the ring. Now, who was it who was in that position before, and why is there a special election?
Before it was Juan Barquin, and it's open now because he basically abandoned the seat.
Wow.
Because the governor appointed him to a better job or a bigger job, however you want to call it. But at the end of the day, he abandoned the seat. Fortunately, we have elected officials now that they become elected officials for their own benefit, not for the benefit of the community. Like me, I already have a job. I'm not looking for another one.
That's good, because being a state representative is considered a part-time job.
Yes.
Which is why they only get paid like $26,000 a year. And you definitely can't live off of that. You have to be gainfully employed previously.
I agree, and if he wasn't gonna be able to do it, he should never take the job in the first place.
Now, it's my understanding you do not have a opponent in the primary, so you're going straight to the general election for the special election, correct?
Yes, on December 5th is the general election.
And who are you running against, and why are you different from him?
There's many things I'm doing for him. Honestly, sometimes I can't even remember his name. I know he's an insurance lawyer. The big difference is that I'm a veteran. He's not. I've already raised a family. He hasn't even started one yet. There was an article that came out that said that I got more years being married than he has almost alive. I mean, you want a kindergarten driving your car around, or you want somebody that's already had some years experience in driving out there. Not that I want to hold his age and experience against him, but my children are my children.
Experience is a lot. It means a lot when it comes to making decisions that are going to affect families. And so we appreciate that. In the grand scheme of things, we need someone who has interacted with the school system like you, who understands the issues that parents are facing, that, the kids are going through. We talked about the politicizing education, but also the attacks on our teachers and trying to, put in a curriculum that is damn near anti-American in some cases. I've seen some of these supplemental videos that the governor is allowing to go into our classrooms where it's cartoons of Christopher Columbus saying, oh, it's better to be a slave than to have been genocided by his conquistadors. That's just ludicrous if that's what they want to teach the kids.
One of the biggest things is, the saying's been around way before us, and that if we don't learn by our mistakes, we're bound to do it again. And that is why it's important that children need to be taught history, exactly how it happened, and denying that benefit to them, is going to hurt everyone in the long run.
Yeah.
And by the way, one of the biggest things about my opponent is that, he's an insurance attorney, and he's still for that insurance industry. He is the problem that we're facing today, as far as why we're paying so much in insurance in our homes.
Yeah, we definitely have a problem because we have an insurance commissioner who happens to also be the commissioner of finance, who really has been asleep at the wheel as far as insurance is concerned, not making those appearances and not battening down the insurance system, which is now rapidly falling apart and making all of our housing values go straight up. Is that one of your priorities?
It is. And I'm going to tell you, it's more than just that they've been sleeping at the wheel. It's that they are little soldiers following orders because they have nothing. They can't say nothing on their own. They're just puppets. That's all they are. Empty suits. How we call it in the political world.
Jonas is a nice guy. I've met him. He's a laugh a minute. But as far as how he's doing his job is concerned, I think it's definitely lacking, and it's hurting us all. What are your other priorities as far as wanting to go into office and wanting to change things in Tallahassee?
Well, besides find the insurance industry, one of the things I want to do is I want to help the seniors, by freezing the ad valorem in their homes. So this way the retired seniors that own their home already, no matter what happens around them, their taxes don't go up in their homes and they can keep their homes. Look, we're losing people in Florida. It's a fact. Okay, and we need to stop that. It's Florida's bleeding, and a band-aid ain't going to be able to do it anymore. We need major surgery. And our seniors that have worked, their entire lives for people like me, people like you to get to where we're at today are in jeopardy of getting forced out of here. So somebody has to be there for them to make sure that they can be safe, and that's one of the things that we can do. And it's an immediate thing. I already talked to one of the property appraisers that I'm sorry, a tax adjuster that said that look, I've spoken to others in the county, and this won't harm any income that comes to the county itself. By helping these seniors, because at the end of the day, houses all around us are going to keep being built, and values are going to keep going up. But at least those seniors are protected and they can stay in their home.
Now, Carlos is a South Florida guy.
Yo.
You really grew up, but was it Hallandale, was it? Or was it Hialeah?
I was born in Kendall and grew up in Pembroke Pines.
I mean, South
We're in
Florida
Kendall.
has all sorts of issues that we don't deal with up here. Number one is the fact that they got water coming up the sewers, coming in from the sea, but that they also have all sorts of issues in regards to their diversity, and there's always seems to be infighting between the various sectors. But I'm concerned. I'm interested in knowing what your opinion is in regards to immigration and South Florida. And we obviously have a federal government that has never gotten it right. You've been here since you were what, 4 years old?
Around 3-4 years old, yes.
So you didn't have to deal with it. Your parents did though.
Yes, yes.
Immigration is concerned, and there should be a much easier path than it is right now. We probably wouldn't have all this problem as well as the politicalization of immigration.
Right, but Gary, let me really quick just to go back to what Carlos was saying. You said that we don't have the problems like of Kendall and Purple Pines that you have up there. Actually, there is one problem that we're all having. You might not have it individually, but your neighbor might, and that's that what they put in about citizens being able to drop you to another insurance company, even if you pay, as long as you're not paying more than 20% of what your premium is now. That's a problem that a lot of people are having, including in your area. If people are struggling right now to pay their premiums now, imagine what's going to happen when they get dropped to another insurance company and they got to pay an extra 15%. Or if the insurance company is really, about making money, what if they give you up to 19%? That's around that we're all having. And that's something that our Republican legislature approved.
They also, it's crazy because you see prices going up, you see inflation up, you see insurance companies posting these record profits, but then you also see a legislature that is making sure wages stay depressed. They don't want to raise the minimum wage. They're busting unions. They want to bust the teachers union. They want to make sure that your union can't take out your dues out of your paycheck. There's so many crazy things that they're doing that it doesn't seem like they really want to support a robust economy, but they really want this, Florida to be this minimum wage service level economy, and that's not the 21st century. That Florida needs to get out of that mindset. We need good jobs, good union jobs that people can, afford these things for, especially with the rising costs in housing and insurance.
We need that. We need to make sure that those workers are protected, that they're not being, let go for mischievous reasons. Employees need protection.
Yeah.
And now we're a show about basically cannabis laws and regulations, and that's an issue in regards to workers as well, because a lot of cannabis workers, I think, should be unionized. And I think Chris has been working on that issue for a while. And
you're right, Gary. There have been some of these major multi-state operators, who have only been in existence since 2017. But they have done such a poor job in working conditions. We've had deaths all around the country of folks that have had major health issues and have passed away. And all these major MSOs have gotten as a slap on the wrist from OSHA. And then when there is an effort to try and unionize, they'll just pull out of that state. And rather than having to deal with, creating safe working conditions and paying people the wages that they deserve. So it's a major issue in our, in the cannabis industry. But more than that, in Florida, people are still being fired from their jobs, even though they're legal medical marijuana patients. And it's why, Gary, you drafted our Public Employee Protection Act, which, we just can't get a hearing because of the Republican-controlled legislature. So, Johnny, we hope that you get elected, because we want to have a champion like yourself, in that seat that'll be willing to push forward this important legislation that the people need in this state.
Look, I will always be a champion to make sure that workers get protected from all companies, because I was a worker myself, and I can give you an example of what happened to me when I first started working. It was a Saturday. I'm with digging ditches as an electrician, and my wife calls me and tells me that my daughter was sick, and I'm telling my boss, "Hey, I gotta go because my daughter." And he's like, "Oh, but that's what your wife is for." I'm like, "What? No, and I'm the dad." So I picked up and left. I got fired for that.
Wow.
So yes, personally, I know exactly how that feels, and that's why I'm always gonna be a champion to make sure that workers are protected.
And you have a fair amount of senior citizens in your district, correct?
Yes, I do have.
I stalked your Facebook page. Sorry about that. But
No worries.
I noticed that you had a lot of pictures of you at various senior facilities and things of that sort. And you were with a lovely woman over at the Versailles, which I love the place. It's a shame that Trump didn't pay for everybody's lunch when he came over that one day.
Well, Gary, seniors, and not only should it be for me, but it should be for many people. We should have, more protection for them. Like I said, look at my mom. She's 77. And we got to make sure that they are washed over and protected, because they put in their 35, 40, some even 50 years. Look, the one I call my dad passed away about 3.5 years ago, and to about 3 years before he actually passed away, he was still working.
Wow.
Putting in his time, and they have been there for us to do what we're at today. And I appreciate that. So I want to make sure that someone's there, making sure that they're protected. They're not just run out and forgotten about. When I was a councilman, you'd be surprised how many times I got calls about, seniors wanting to get kicked out of their apartments because of a late payment, or because of some reason, because they wanted to put in somebody new to charge more rent. These are things that I'm going to be fighting for, to make sure that this doesn't happen to them.
Well, Johnny, I'm glad you said that, because we have a patient protection bill that we've written up. Again, can't get any hearings on, but seniors are being kicked out of their nursing homes for utilizing medical marijuana, which is legal in the state of Florida. And to us, that's just ludicrous. People are also being kicked off the organ transplant list. So these are important issues that we need to codify into law. Our Republican legislature, for some reason, thought that the extent is the implementation bill they did in 2017, and then everything's great. But it's not. There are still people fired from their jobs. There's still people having to make life altering and life-threatening decisions, all to utilize a medicine that can help them live a healthier life. And to us, it's unjust, and that's why we continue to do what we do. And we're glad to see you stepping up to the plate to be a champion for these folks.
Well, we got to make sure that we protect our Second Amendment rights. They might say they do, but obviously we know that they don't. I'm gonna make sure that we do. That's one of the biggest things that I am. Look, I went and I joined the Navy at 17 years old. And it was to fight for all. I refuse to just sit down and just let people like that ruin our country. We got to be protected.
I'm glad you said that, because just on Thursday, there was a hearing at the federal courthouse in the 11th district in Jacksonville about protecting the Second Amendment rights of medical marijuana patients. A lot of patients call us every day. We field calls. They're scared. They're like, I want to be able to protect myself and my family, but I also need this medicine to survive. And having both these things is creating a legal issue that's giving people a lot of anxiety, So I'm glad that you're willing to be that champion for these folks' civil rights. It's important.
No, we'll be there together, Chris. Don't worry.
Now, we've been telling you our opinions on things. I want to hear what your take is on using cannabis as medicine.
As medicine, I think it's okay. They should have the right to. In fact, before we got on the call, I was looking at all the things that is used for chronic pain, for cancer. Look, my dad, he passed away from lung cancer. And I saw the pain in his eyes every day when I be there with him. Anything that would have, helped him, and in his last few months, I wish he would have been able to do it. So yeah, I'm there with you guys.
Yeah, just so you know, Don Gates is running again for SD1, which I think is interesting. He was president of the Senate at one point in time, and he's taking over. He's going after Broxton's seat because Broxton, I guess, is terming out. And he actually had admitted that at one point in time he had a pastor who was ill, and he actually went out and got cannabis for him when he had cancer. So maybe that was some of the thing that Matt Gates was exposed to when he was a child. I don't know what's going on with him now, but so maybe we have somebody in the Senate again who may be at least in the closet in favor of cannabis.
Well, Gary, it's ironic you say that because the amount of privilege I hear in that story. The whole reason that I'm here with you all today is because my father was suffering from a terminal form of dementia. And in 2010, there was no medical marijuana in Florida. And I got arrested, coming home one night after, I just had a conversation with Carlos. I just driven from his house, and I was headed home with my dad. I had his medicine with me, and I ended up catching felony drug charges. I had
no coincidence that you were leaving my house with a bunch of weed on you.
Why you put him on blast for like that?
Yeah, Carlos was our plug for years, just so you know.
Well,
Johnny, there's a lot of things that are pretty important right now when it comes to cannabis. I mean, this state is all screwed up. So just the fact that you're willing to come on to this show and talk to us about cannabis when there's so many other issues in this state right now because of our horrible government. But there's two issues with cannabis that I actually really want to talk to you about. Right, we find ourselves kind of in a transition. Right, the big giant MSO in this state is running a petition initiative to legalize marijuana, and we at the show, we may or may not like that initiative, but I think we lean towards not liking it because it's would keep this business closed. Okay. That being said, right. It's well funded, and chances are it's probably going to pass. So we find ourselves in a transition here. Like if you come into the legislature, there's a good chance that we're gonna see a transition when it comes to marijuana. There's two things that I think are important. First off, that we have to preserve the medical rights of patients in the state before that gets screwed up, and second, we need to make sure that the regulations for adult use don't get perverted by the conservative legislator that perverted our medical marijuana legislation. What can you do to keep from screwing up? Keep conservatives from screwing up our adult use system. There's things that we are probably not going to have, like being able to grow at home and being able to get a license to have a dispensary or being able to grow professionally. It looks like the business is going to stay closed. What can we do to make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, look, I mean, you guys are the experts. I'm gonna make sure that I want to talk to Chris and make sure we get the right answer to that. But one of the biggest things is we got to make sure that when it comes to weed, we need to be big on decriminalizing it. Okay, it's not right that people getting arrested just for a little bit of weed and then their life gets ruined. So that's one of the biggest things too. Why I'm for the medical marijuana, make sure that we decriminalizing it. If you have a card and you're using it, you shouldn't be getting arrested for that kind of stuff. And everything else, Carlos, I mean, look, that question is pretty broad.
I tend to ask, I think I asked that question in a complicated way, but you answered it, in my opinion, in a very simple way. One thing that we need to do in order to make sure that this industry is put in properly is to make sure that the people that are in jail now don't continue to suffer from it. I think that's a wonderful answer to say. It's bullshit that we have MSOs that are profiting off of this while people are in jail for cannabis crimes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the corporations that are involved in this are not just the MSOs that are selling it. It's also the corporations that run the jails, the prison system. They're the ones who are always pushing more and more legislation, more and more regulation to bring in more customers for them, to put more people behind bars.
Yep.
For a profit. I don't know how much of a profit you can make off of somebody who's in jail.
Gary, if slavery wasn't profitable, America would not be the country that it is today.
Say nothing.
So
Yeah,
I
missed that one.
That's my wife in the background. That I said it. Quote me. We're live. Everybody can see. Okay.
Hi, Anais.
She's from DR. She can do anything she wants.
She scares me, just so y'all know.
I got scared too for a minute. I thought he was going to hit you.
Johnny, do you have the Southern Reception Center in your district?
Excuse me?
Is the Southern Reception Center in your district? That's the prison for South Florida.
Yes, it is. Yeah, there's I think it's called FCI. It's right. It's actually right above Metro Zoo. Come to think of it.
Yeah, that's right about where it is. You know, they don't have proper air conditioning, and it's amazing in South Florida. You have so many people in a closed space without air conditioning, and of course they're cold as heck in the winter, and they're hot as hell in the summer. And I get that they're in prison, but there is a humane way to have people serve out their sentences. The whole point of imprisonment supposedly is making people better, but I can't see how that would make anybody a better person.
Well, you know, Gary, we got more people in this country in prison than some totalitarian regimes like Iran or China put together. I mean, and that's just in a handful of states in the South. So, you know, Johnny's on the right track when it comes to criminal justice reform, starting with cannabis. I mean, you know, we look back at the history of this. The Nixon administration has admitted that they criminalized cannabis as Schedule I to directly attack, you know, their anti-war opponents on the left, and to attack the African-American community and slow down the civil rights movement by you know, a negative campaign. And you saw the Reagan administration double down, you know, with the war on drugs. I mean, Carlos and I are elder millennials. We grew up with the Ninja Turtles telling us not to do drugs when clearly those guys were high out of their minds.
Michelangelo smoked weed.
Yeah, otherwise it wouldn't be in that lousy.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Okay.
I mean, how else do you eat 30 pizzas in one sitting, you know?
Well, if you're in New York, you know, you could fold them a whole bunch of slices at one time, so you can just knock it down as quickly as possible.
Well, Gary, I'm glad you mentioned New York, because that's one of the few states that's getting it right when it comes to cannabis, despite all their problems. I mean, when it comes to decriminalization, anywhere you can smoke a cigarette, you can smoke cannabis in New York. New York is, you know, the state that's, you know, we're modeling our parental rights bill after, because even in Florida, as a medical marijuana patient, you can have that status used against you in a custody hearing. You can have your kids taken away from you, even if you're a legal medical marijuana patient. These are the type of legislative fixes that the GOP legislature in Florida is not paying attention to, because clearly they're out of touch with the needs of everyday people. And so, Johnny, we're bringing these things to your attention because these are the things that they're not doing. These are the job that still needs to get done, and that there are, you know, there may be 800,000 patients registered, but let's be real. There are millions of people in this state that utilize cannabis for medicinal properties. They just don't want to go on a list. And they also don't want to pay $300 out of pocket for a doctor recommendation. So they'll go to the guy, you know, down the street. But we all know that regulated markets are safer for people, that lab testing is safer. And that's what we need is we need a safe, regulated market where people can know that the medicine they're putting in their body is going to be safe for them. And the sad part is that the current MSOs, some of them are putting out moldy products. Some of them are putting out products with microplastics or pest in them, or spraying them with pesticides that you shouldn't put on plants. And so for a sick cancer patient, if you have a grandmother, or like you said, Johnny, you wanted to give this to your father, you know, that's the risk that is unacceptable. And yet the Republican legislators just turn their blind eye to it for campaign donations.
I agree, Chris. I agree. And I mean, look, and people not only just afraid about, you know, going on the list, you know, for what you said, but also because they don't know how many restrictions there are. Because I mean, they're not listed exactly what they are. It's an open end, you know, a restriction of what can happen to you. So yeah, people are afraid to, you know, to get on the list like that. So yes, I agree.
And the other problem we have, of course, in Florida is that we don't have what is called reciprocity, which means if you're a medical patient in another state and you come to Florida and grandma needs her medicine, you can't get it from one of our dispensaries here, from one of our MMTCs. They have to get it from what we call the legacy market or the black market, which is thriving in South Florida. I mean, I've seen it on the streets of Miami all over the place. It's hard not to see it, but that's not necessarily a product you can necessarily trust. Plus, in fact, it's illegal. So people can come here on vacation and leave on probation. There are so many states in the country that have.
There's a lot around here.
And here we are at a tourist paradise, and yet if you come here as a tourist, you could get arrested. And I mean, I know they arrest them in droves for spring break. I don't know why anybody still comes to Florida for spring break. It seems like it's hell on earth.
Somebody else has some awesome sound effects. I'm just saying.
That's me over here. Trying to have my own over here. Trying to be like Chris.
Now, Johnny, you're in the electrician business, and you know basically when it comes to new home building that we are severely lacking right now, and that's why we have a definite lack of affordable housing in South Florida and every place else. What can you possibly do to alleviate that system?
Well, I mean, look, there's a couple of things, and one of the biggest things is we got to make sure that we fund a program called Safe Our Homes. And what it is that it allows people, homeowners, to apply to make sure that they get their impact windows, the impact doors, and a new roof, and that will alleviate it'll alleviate the insurance, okay, and it'll alleviate the cost too of homes. Right now, the industry, especially with what just happened with the pandemic, the materials are going up. Everybody, the industry is being abused, and that's one thing that I'm trying to work with some of the Congress people now is to see if maybe there could be a grant for some of the construction companies or contractors to apply for to make up that big, I'm gonna say, disparity of prices and materials, because the materials keep going up, the house of cost of materials, the construction cost is going up, and we got to fix that somewhere, and if just like, for instance, when the Feds came and bailed out the banks, and when we have a big freeze, they come in and help out the farmers. Right now in the construction industry, there's a big hurt on the material cost, and we need help some of those, because there's a lot of small businesses, small mom and pop places that are closing down because they just can't afford it anymore, and they got caught up in where they took let's say a $3-4 million job, before the prices went up, and now the prices went up, they can't afford to continue doing the job, and a lot of them end up in court because of that. So when it comes to the construction industry, I have a lot of ideas, and we have a lot of things that we're going to try to help out fix, to help out, a lot of these small companies that are hurting a lot, Gary. So yes, I'm glad you bring that up too.
Well, it's not necessarily a lack of housing; it's a lack of affordable housing. And I don't know why the rents are so high. I have to bring it up because they hit me hard. My rent doubled.
Well, Gary, let me ask you: are you renting from a private landlord or a corporation?
I'm actually renting from a corporation.
And that's part of what it is. In Florida, we've allowed, investment banks and these different corporations that are franchised under them and such to come in and buy up homes. And they're artificially driving up the prices, and you got to think is that you start to look at some of these investment banks, and they're funded by the same investment hedge funds that are also funding the private prison industry. It is sad, but there is an interconnection behind these, I hate to use the cliche, but giant evil corporations, and many of the problems that we're facing around affordable housing, around criminal justice, around just the many of the societal problems we're experiencing in general, that profits are being put before the lives of people in the state of Florida, and it's affecting working people the hardest. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer.
And Kristen, let me just chime in. Look, what one of the things you didn't bring up is the fact that because of the insurance rates that are going on. Look, for me personally, I was paying $2,200. It came now. I just got my new quote. It's almost $8,000. Okay, when you have prices like that, okay, let's say if I was renting my home out, I would have to bring up rent because how am I going to be able to afford that? So a lot of times right now, why rents are going up is because the insurance. Everything comes back down to we need to lower our insurance premiums. We need to start regulating some of these insurance companies that are just getting out of hand, and we got to start that now. This is something that we can't just keep kicking that can down the road like our legislature has been doing. They have 3 failed sessions, and then they promised that they were going to fix something. They haven't fixed anything for us. All they've done is help out the insurance companies. And that's exactly what my opponent is going to go do. Keep helping out the insurance companies, not help us.
Mm. Well said. Well said.
Yeah, I would be concerned if somebody in the insurance industry who's into the sales of it, it gets into office. And it seems like they would be more interested in higher insurance rates and more insurance rates as opposed to lesser insurance rates, just by nature of their own jobs.
Yeah. Carlos, you're a homeowner. Well, how do you feel about all this?
I mean, my mortgage hasn't gone up, but
well, that's the thing. The mortgages haven't gone up. Why would the rents go up? Isn't that the major cost of housing is the mortgage?
I think
Carlos,
people can just get away with it. Like I think I'll tell you one thing, there has been a surge of people calling my cell phone randomly saying they want to buy my home. Right. I think these people have the intention of buying my home and kicking out whoever, if somebody's living there, if somebody's renting there, kicking them out and raising the rent. I think I'm fortunate that I own my own home, but if I rented, I'd probably be screwed. I'd probably have to leave Tampa.
But Carlos, you know what it is too. That look, right now, if you are scoring, and like for instance, in my case, where my mortgage, my insurance, and my taxes are all escrowed, and one payment comes out. Okay, when insurance goes up, your mortgage might not go up, but your insurance will. That will make your mortgage payment go up.
Yeah.
Okay, and when you're paying more money for your insurance premium than you are for your mortgage, that's a problem that we have.
It's a big problem. And to be completely clear, yeah, my some taxes went up and my insurance went up a little bit. But I'm fortunate because it didn't go up like crazy. Like some people are spending 3-4 times what they would spend a month on their where they live, and mine just went up just a little bit. But yeah, and then where would I smoke my pot?
Well, that's another issue, by the way. By law, you cannot smoke in a private residence if the landlord or the owner of the house says you can't. And you cannot smoke or use your medicine outside of your home, essentially, anywhere, on public transportation, in public ways. Of course, you can't smoke it in prison. You can't smoke it in a rehab facility, even if using cannabis will help you get off of Oxycontin. You can't use it. So if you're in a rental property, it's very possible you can't use your medicine anywhere, even though it's legal for you to own.
Yeah, you can't use it in public housing either, Gary. That's one of the shortcomings that some states have dealt with, others haven't. All in all, for all the freedom that we're given the illusion that we have, there are so many of our rights that are trampled upon when it comes to this war on drugs, which is the longest running war that this country has waged. And the sad part is the people it's waging it on are our citizens. It's Americans that are the casualty of this. And so, it's like, it's nuts because you said it earlier. There are people who are making millions and billions on this plant, Wall Street type folks, and then there are people in jail who try to sell the same plant and pay their bills and pay their rising cost of rent. And until the last prisoner is freed for cannabis, in our jails, it doesn't seem right that folks are making millions and billions selling it to the masses.
Now, I'm not going to talk about my having a point of privilege, but I can tell you that if you are a black or brown person, there's more likely a chance that if you walk away from your home to go ahead and use your medicine because you can't use it at home, you will get arrested. You will get at least pulled over, and you will get at least hassled. I mean, I keep my everybody think that I'm drinking Americana, but this is actually horchata. But the fact is, I don't even want anybody to know that, because they might just look at me differently when it comes to the law is concerned, because the law enforcement has discretion, even when it comes to areas where you have a civil citation as opposed to an actual prison sentence. That is what's going on each time. There seems to be a definite dichotomy as to who gets arrested and who does not get arrested.
Well, look, Gary, Chris, I can't see your name now, or Carlos. Look, I want to pledge to you guys that I'm a pro worker, and I'm going to make sure that I fight to make sure Florida lives up to its lofty American ideals. I want to thank you guys for having me on. It's been a privilege, and maybe hopefully we can do this again soon. I do have to get ready for another show at 11. So thank you so much.
Okay,
Johnny,
John, can you give us your platform before you go, and where the people can contact you?
Yes. My website is voteforjohnny.com, and you can call me at 786-714-8889. I'm on all social media is at Johnny G. Farias. Whether it's Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. I'm also on TikTok, and you can find me there too. Call me.
TikTok.
Yes, you can call me anytime. I always have the phone with me.
Well, thank you very much, Johnny.
And when is the election, so make sure everybody has their registrations in place?
The election is December 5th of this year, 2023. December 5th.
So that means request your vote by mail ballot now, because most folks don't realize our governor passed the law that tossed out all the previous vote by mail registrations. So please register to vote by mail this month before the end of the month, so that way you can vote by mail easily for Johnny in December 5th.
As long as you're in District 118, which is surrounded by what areas?
Okay, my district goes from southwest 8th Street to 208th Street in going south. Now it's on the west side of 117th Avenue to 147th Avenue. It's a nice long rectangular portion. And it will be Kendall, West Kendall, Metro Zoo, Country Walk, Three Lakes, all those areas right there in Summer Gould.
Well, Carlos, that's home for you, brother.
Yeah. I want some Cuban coffee right now for some reason.
Well, Johnny, thank you so much for being an advocate for the people, and we appreciate you stepping up to run. And we hope that you get in there, and that again, you have our full endorsement, and we want to see you there as a champion of the people. So thank you again for taking the time to join us in the rotation.
Thank you so much. And for the listeners, on my website, again, voteforjohnny.com, there is a donation button. Every dollar counts.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny.
Well, Carlos, man, I'm glad we had Johnny on the show. We got some special elections coming up. We've had 2 special election candidates so far this fall join us. We had Tom Keene, who's running in the special election area in Osceola Orange, and we got Johnny down there in the Broward, Miami-Dade area. So pretty excited that we got some great folks stepping up to fill some of these state house seats.
Who was the Gen Z guy?
Oh, that's Nate Douglas. He's running in 2024 for Seminole County's state house seat.
Which is Carlos's old seat.
I'm thinking that Nate Douglas is one of the few, probably the only one that had actually smoked weed before. You think Johnny smoked weed before? You think he's ever tried it before?
I wasn't gonna ask him. I mean, in the grand
I wanted to.
As long as you're on our team, public policy wise, whether you imbibe or not, does not bother me.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't want him to be like, yeah, I smoke weed all the time, and then like some Republicans like, oh, this guy's a drug addict. You can't vote for him.
No Republicans have ever smoked weed ever, right?
Except for Matt Gaetz, apparently.
Matt Gaetz hasn't. I think Matt Gaetz does a dab before every damn session.
It's like Matt Gaetz is smoking that shit with Johnny Hopkins and Slode Kettering. They were blazing it up every day.
Why is Matt Gaetz got to be the dab representation of us in the?
because he's
I
District
gotta run
1.
for office. That's just what it is.
You know,
He's District 1. I'm not going to knock down Pensacola, but I am anyway. I mean, Pensacola is one of those one-horse towns where the horse is on meth. And
That's what I say. Like Matt Gaetz seems like he does more than fucking dab to me, bro. Like it looks like he's like on a couple of bumps of coke and probably like takes Adderall or some shit. You know what I mean?
Man, it's too much.
the thing is, but getting to federal, because we are kind of touching on federal, we did actually have some success in the Senate this last week. Is that not correct, or is that in the news?
Yeah, we could talk about that. Carlos, I think it's time for the news, and let's cover that first.
I'm not ready for this.
That's fine.
Oh shit. Oh.
All right. So, breaking news this week. Senators advance a cannabis banking reform bill for the first time. Members of the United States Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs voted last week to advance legislation known as the Safer Banking Act, which will allow financial institutions to more readily establish relationships with state licensed cannabis businesses. Members of the House had passed an earlier version of the legislation, the Safe Banking Act, on 7 prior occasions. But today's vote, or last week's vote, rather, marked the first time that Senate members have voted in favor of the measure. So, the crazy part about all this is that the House currently does not have a speaker, which means pretty much all business in the House has grinded to a halt until they actually elect a speaker. And the dysfunction of the Republican Party at the federal level is just sad at the moment. And some of the leading candidates to replace Kevin McCarthy are prohibitionists, people like Jim Jordan, people like Steve Scalise. So it's going to be a major issue of whether or not we can see any cannabis reform under the expected Republican leadership to come up.
Wait, so like getting dude out of the Speaker of the House seat, like basically just like made sure that the government was shut down.
I gotta wonder what the QAnon folks are thinking about the fact that they have a possible candidate for the speaker who is pro-pedophilia. just a thought.
Jim, and Gary's taking a shot at Jim Jordan. For those who don't know, with Jim Jordan's time at I believe it was Ohio State as a wrestling coach, a bunch of students got molested, and he pretty much said he didn't know anything, even though clearly he must have. So
he molested them.
Yeah, Sandusky.
Yeah, well, actually, he was an assistant, and I guess it was the head coach or another assistant coach, and he didn't. It's like I've been on a football team. All the other coaches' quirks, and he's like, oh, that one's a little racist, or hey, that one's he's got some anger issues. You work.
That one's a pedophile.
That one's a pedophile. So it's like, don't sit there and act all surprised when you got a long list of people coming out and saying, oh, this guy touched me 20 years ago, and coach knew about it. He's like, I knew there's the sort.
I'm not saying that there isn't good candidates amongst the GOP for the speaker. There are some folks. I'm not a big fan of Steve Scalise. He's kind of anti-Semitic.
He's anti-immigrant too. He said Mexicans are bringing drugs into our country, and they're compared them to parasites. He's a horrible person.
But there are good candidates in the House. They just need to step up.
Well, I think that's part of the issues that we have in the House. I mean, this next election has a lot of consequences, and it's sad, but I see that, unless Joe Biden is actually reelected and the Democrats take control of both the Senate and the House, there doesn't seem to be much hope for cannabis reform. The Republican Party in itself is heavily invested upon and was actually, founded by Republicans, the private prison industry. Correction Corporations of America, which is now CoreCivic, which is, behind Geo Group, the second largest private prison. So there's a lot to be said about, what's going on with the interplay of money and politics and how prohibitionists are still, running that side of the party. I'm not to say there aren't prohibitionists in the Democratic Party, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, but, the fact is that there are more Democrats that get it, that understand what's going on. So politically, Democratic Party, step up and be more bold with it. Uncle Joe, it's not enough just to give out pardons. I mean, you're the president, man. Use those cojones and decriminalize it, man. Write an executive order if you need to. I mean, they're going to give you shit about it anyway. So step up and be bold with it. Be, you know, to all the candidates out there, you know, people like Johnny, people like Tom King, people like Nate Douglas, you know, be bold in your public policy. Say this is wrong. Prohibition is wrong. Racism is wrong. And support, you know, cannabis in the right way when it comes to public policy.
Here.
You know, let's get back to the news.
Yeah, back to the news.
Let's all smoke weed in politics.
You know, most recently there was a study that came out. There is no significant uptick in youth rates of cannabis following legalization. One of the things that we hear from the GOP in Florida and from all across the country is, oh my God, what about the children? You know what? The kids are doing just fine. The kids are not smoking more weed because it's legal. As a matter of fact, you're actually making it to where you're not going to see increases in youth use because you got to be 21 to go into these places. You know, you can't. You know, the sad part is that any kid with light up shoes and a SpongeBob backpack can walk into a Walgreens or CVS, and there are dangerous drugs right there that they can purchase over the counter. You can't do that in dispensary. Hell, you can't do that at Chillum. Carlos, don't you have ID requirements? Don't you kick underage kids out anymore when they try to come in?
Yeah, we got underage kids trying to get in here all the time. 21 and up, baby.
Exactly. So
you're not pushing infused cake pops.
No, but if I did, I wouldn't sell them to kids.
Well, you know, I think all in all, again, regulation works. And there are bad actors, but that's the point of regulation. And I think in Florida, what we're seeing from our current Department of Agriculture is an overreach. You know, these are regulatory issues. They're not legislative ones. And we're seeing a regulatory overreach. We're also seeing willful ignorance because they're firing or have fired many of the qualified folks that we saw regulate the hemp industry under the previous administration. And the previous administration under Nikki Fried didn't even have the funding from the legislature to regulate the industry. They had to cannibalize other programs and find the funding within their own budget. And I think she did an amazing job, and as did Holly Bell in regulating our hemp program. Carlos, you've been under siege as a business owner lately. Tell the folks a little bit more about what's the latest news and what's happening with small business owners like yourself in the current Department of Agriculture.
And this crazy letter that went out this last week.
Yeah, that's the latest that's come out, is that they actually put out a letter saying that THCO, whether from Delta 8 or Delta 9, is illegal. But here's the thing, that was taken out of my story maybe like 2 years ago.
So they're late.
So they are late. It's just there has always been kind of like an issue there of like being able to communicate to the different stores. And I think they saw at this workshop that we all went up to for the new statutes that we're starting to be a little vocal about them not communicating to us. Like you know, that there was a point in time where in order to find out the rules to start a hemp business in Florida, or to find out whether or not hemp was legal or what was legal about hemp, you just had to go onto a page on the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services website.
Well, I do have an opinion on that. I do think that letter went out basically to confuse the store owners whose intelligence they have once again totally misunderstood by having them look at the letter and think, oh, I see Delta 8 and Delta 9 on the letter, even though it says 8 THCO, and think that, oh no, I can no longer sell those THC products as in Delta 8 and Delta 9 in my store, and totally ignore the O because they already know the O is already out. So it sounds like a confusing letter to people, but they really have underestimated the shop owners there.
I agree with you. I think they were definitely trying to confuse a lot of people with those letters.
Well, you know, I want to talk a little bit about you know, we're on the subject of the government kind of screwing the pooch when it comes to, you know, cannabis and what's right, what's wrong, what's legal, what's not. In the state of Wyoming, you know, there's been this coalition between you know, Compassionate Options Wyoming, shout out to Wyoming NORML, and even the Wyoming Libertarian Party around two ballot initiatives. one, to essentially decriminalize, and decrease penalties for possession, and the other one to legalize access to medical marijuana. And the Wyoming, Secretary of State office told them they were thousands of signatures short from making the ballot next year. Well, come to find out, they actually did have enough signatures. And so now they have to go out and recollect signatures before and submit to the Secretary of State's office before the upcoming legislative session. They far surpassed the number of signatures that they had needed to collect it. So that just goes to show that prohibitionists, when they get into certain levels of state government, whether it's at an executive level like we have with Wilton Simpson, or at a regulatory level with the bureaucrats, are still doing all these dirty tricks to stop progress, and it's not right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to do, before we have to end up today, do a little bit deeper of a dive in regards to the hearing we had for the Second Amendment this last week?
I'm glad you mentioned that, Gary. So on Thursday, opening arguments were heard in the 11th Circuit Court at federal court in Jacksonville. Nikki Fried, when she was Commissioner of Agriculture, filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration around the Second Amendment rights of patients in the state of Florida being infringed upon. Her herself, as Commissioner of Agriculture, had the responsibility, that department, to essentially regulate concealed carry permits. And on the form, it asks you if you're doing any illegal drugs. Well, cannabis is legal in the state of Florida for medical purposes. So if you're a medical marijuana patient, you should answer yes. However, the federal form specifically says, including cannabis if it's legal. So they're basically saying that you can't have a gun if you utilize cannabis, even if it is legal in your state. And so the Schedule I status of cannabis continues to remain the biggest issue at the federal level that needs to be addressed. Now, House Democrats have reintroduced the MORE Act, and so we'll see if that goes anywhere. You have Chuck Schumer with the Cannabis Administration Opportunity Act in the Senate. You even have Nancy Mace as a Republican with the States Act. So there are numerous vehicles for ending the Schedule I status of cannabis. But again, with all the dysfunction we're seeing in Congress, they can't even pass a budget. And in that budget has been many key cannabis things. Like we said, the Safe Banking Act, attaching, according to the military budget, whether or not people can get security clearance for having utilized cannabis in the past. The Air Force had recently instituted a policy that essentially allows you, if you test positive the first time and you admit you used cannabis in the past, that they'll take a second test once you get into like basic training and show that you're clean. And so they've actually been able to avoid having to give out more dishonorable discharges than necessary if people have utilized cannabis in the past. I mean, look, all in all, you have other nations that allow their reserve duty folks to utilize cannabis. You have them allowing active duty folks to utilize CBD as long as they're using non-intoxicating forms. Cannabis has so many cannabinoids and compounds in it that are beneficial. And that's one of the reasons why most recently in the International Journal of Radiation Oncology, Biology, and Physics, they surveyed 2,500 cancer patients who are receiving radiation for breast cancer. My own mother had to go through this. And I can tell you that's one of the most painful things for a woman to go through. And they saw that 15% of subjects actually acknowledge having used cannabis, and patients most frequently endorse using cannabis to treat their insomnia, their anxiety, and their pain. So 1 in 6 cancer patients are utilizing it for symptom management. And I can tell you, those are just the ones that want to admit to it. So there's other folks out there who have professional licenses who are scared to be on a list. But there are folks out there who, it could cost them their lives because of that anxiety and fear. And that's what NORML exists. We're here to normalize and let you know that it is okay to utilize this. If you're unsure, if you need an education on it, go to norml.org. Check out and learn about the things. Go to our website. Go to suncoastnorml.org. We have tons of educational materials. If you have a group of friends or neighbors, a civic organization, me, Gary, Carlos, we'll drag our behinds out there. We're happy to talk to them and let folks know that this is a medicine that they can utilize. But on the other side of that is, of course, the criminalization of it. And what really pisses me off is when I read stories like this next one. Coming out of Sydney, Australia, there's analysis that showed by the Australian Parliament over 10 years, 94,000 searches were reviewed, and overwhelmingly a majority of those searches failed to identify the presence of illegal substances. But drug sniffing dogs are typically false alerting. and only 21% of the 14,000 searches resulted in illicit drugs being found. The best 2 years later, in 2016, and where 32.5% of 8,746 searches were accurate. So, the fact is that less than 1/3 of drug dogs actually get it right. And you've even seen it in videos on YouTube and stuff where you can see cops false alert just so they can toss someone's car. And so, to me, I think it's animal cruelty. Stop doing it to the dogs. I mean, you shouldn't be getting puppies high off of coke and weed at 6 months old just so you can end up to being junkies and even end up false alerting. So again, this is the news with Kano. Back to you in the studio.
So you want to ban cannabis infused kibble?
I've seen videos where like they've like pointed, or they've obviously given the dog a command to scratch the car, or look like the dog's interested in the car in some way. And it's like, oh, the dog's interested, we gotta fucking, and it's like the officer's like pointing or something, or like tapping or something like that.
Yep. It's important to protect your civil rights. If you are subject to a search, one, the Supreme Court has ruled that they cannot extend your traffic stop to bring a drug sniffing dog. So do not consent to searches. If you do have medical cannabis, make sure it's in the original dispensary package. Treat it like an open container, no different than alcohol. Put it in your glove box, lock the glove box, put it in your trunk. Make sure you don't have readily access to it. Otherwise, they are going to try and bust you down every which way they can.
I got an employee that got pulled over. Like, she was obviously wrong for, like, she was driving the wrong way on a one-way road, but she was sober. She just made a mistake, got pulled over, right? It smelled like weed in her car, so she actually consented to doing a roadside. And I watched the video of the roadside test. The video, she does not look like she's fucked up at all, right? They're doing the roadside for marijuana intoxication, by the way, right? This girl does yoga like 4 times a day, so she's like,
got great balance, clearly.
Yeah, it's looking like, she's saying like, oh, one leg's longer than the other, so you might see a difference. But I'm looking at her, and she's like doing like she's made it work.
Yeah.
The officer said that there was part of her test, like they made her look up, and he said that he saw her eye flutter, and that's why he gave her a DUI.
That is unacceptable.
Like you can just make up shit on these roadside tests.
Well, cops can make up shit.
Yeah.
They only go to like academy for less than 6 months. They're not lawyers. Lawyers go to school for 3 years, 7 years.
I'd love to see somebody in court say, yes, Your Honor, I fluttered my eye at the cop while I was being pulled over. Lock me up.
And they do a show for their cameras. Like he purposely looked towards the officer that was like recording everything on his camera, and he was like, oh yeah, I saw something there. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm glad they stopped all those contracts with Live PD. That was another arrest for show kind of situation.
Well, it's interesting, in all of this, because I recall seeing a cop, I believe it was like Jackson County, Mariana County, up there in North Florida in the Panhandle area. And he had tossed meth in this lady's truck. And the poor lady actually used to be a drug addict, and she was clean and everything. And they ended up, finally finding out the cop was dirty. But, you got to protect yourselves. If you get pulled over, make sure you assert your rights. Make sure you're recording. It's sad, but you got to even have a dash camera, or at least have your phone recording. And there are apps like the ACLU has an app that will automatically, send that recording to the cloud, because cops have been known to take people's cell phones, delete the videos. I mean, the abuse of our civil rights under the police in this day and age is wrong. I mean, and the sad part is, locally, Tampa has been known, their DUI squad is one of the most corrupt in the nation. They've been investigated multiple times. Mayor Castor, has a bunch of bad apples under her belt. I mean, her own police chief had to resign because she got pulled over drunk driving a golf cart. She's like, don't you know I'm the police chief of Tampa? Well, maybe don't do that if you're drunk. Just keep your freaking mouth shut. But,
I love that video.
That's why we have our police investigation.
let's take it all the way back to biking while black, where like,
Oh, yeah,
a few regulations for bicycles went out, and all of a sudden in Tampa, all these black people got pulled over on their bicycle.
Yeah, because you got to have a light on the front, a light on the back, and a helmet. Otherwise, you're getting a ticket, and then that gives them probable cause because you're in violation to search you.
Yeah, and for some reason, all the white people in Tampa already had their lights set up properly on their bicycles for some reason.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
just didn't get
that's
pulled
scary.
over for it. Because I can tell you, I've seen tons of white folks biking down Bayshore. They didn't have a light on the back of their bike or a helmet. You know,
Every time I see a bunch of people biking on Bayshore, I get scared. I don't know what it is, but here's the deal. You know what else is scary? Halloween. You know how you can make Halloween less scary and more fun? Guess what's coming up?
Weed.
Go to our event.
that's right.
Yeah.
Halloween.
That was your cue, Carlos, to get the graphic queued up.
Yeah. All right.
So thank you, Gary. Not that one.
Sorry, so many graphics.
That's right. Halloween 2023 is right around the corner. For those of you who don't know, we have been doing our annual Halloween party for several years now. And October 27th, doors open at 8 p.m. Chillum, St. Petersburg is where it's all going down. I'm pretty excited for it. There's going to be a costume contest with a cash prize. We're going to have music and live entertainment. It's only $10 for general admission. If you're a Suncoast NORML member, it's free. And VIP tickets are on sale now. If you're a non-member or if you're someone who wants to renew your membership, select the non-member VIP tickets. If you are a member and you want to, skip the line through the VIP line and get a little gift bag, the VIP tickets are at a discounted rate for folks who are up to date on their dues. It's sponsored by the Florida Cannabis Festival. Thank you to them for being our title sponsor. Also want to give a shout out to our community partners, Chillum, of course, who's hosting it, and High Time Trucks, who's going to be out there with one of their mobile trucks, as well as our small business supporters like Cushy Pies that'll be out there vending. If you're someone who has a small business and you want to become a small business supporter or a vendor at the event, please get in touch with us through our website, suncoastnormal.org. You can email us at info@suncoastnormal.org. All proceeds from Halloween go to the legalization movement. They go to make sure we can legalize it. We have a robust legislative agenda that we talked about today with Johnny G. Farias, who's running for House District 118 in the special election. Gary has a boatload of bills that he has helped co-sponsor and author over the past several years. Gary, thank you for being one of the greatest political directors that gets paid absolutely nothing to do this job.
You know how hard it is to have a boatload of bills when you don't have a boat? It really is. But it's true. But it is definitely true. And we are looking forward to you becoming a member if you want to get free admission and or come to Halloween, because it's a fun time to be had by all.
Yeah, and there'll be some great raffles and prizes coming out. The Florida's Cannabis Festival is happening the following weekend, November 4th and 5th in Mount Dora, and they're actually going to be there at our event. They're going to be giving out tickets as well. So if you want to get some tickets to the Florida Cannabis Festival, come to our event, come to Halloween. You can have the opportunity to win some free tickets to the Florida Cannabis Festival, which will be out there participating. Gary's going to moderate an amazing panel out there of public policy folks and patients and analysts. So I'm pretty excited for it. Come find us at the Suncoast NORML booth at the Florida Cannabis Festival, November 4th and 5th in Mount Dora.
And just as a program note, that same week, we have a very special guest coming to the rotation, Dr. Ethan Russo.
Yay.
Who basically coined the term entourage effect and is going to help educate us on why just THC levels are not the most important thing in the whole world.
Indeed. So, that's going to be a special show. It's going to be happening on Tuesday, October 24th at 3 p.m. Eastern. So I'm pretty excited for that. If you want to tune in to when Dr. Russo jumps into rotation, you can watch it live or you can watch the replay anytime on our YouTube channel. Again, please like, subscribe, follow. I hate to do the whole tagline influencer thing, but the truth is that we want to continue to increase the viewership of this show, bring you great folks, great guests. So please go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@SuncoastNormal. Give us a like and a follow and check out our past episodes and all the great guests. And also you can watch it on our past episode on our website at suncoastnormal.org. We broadcast live every Sunday on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. So again, follow us on social media at Suncoast NORML and join us for our upcoming amazing party. And maybe you can win a cash prize for best costume. Carlos, you've had some pretty cool costumes over the years. You were a priest one year. What were you last year? I can't remember. I know I dressed up as Mark Antony and my wife was Cleopatra.
I think I did the priest thing again.
You're a monk.
You know what I did? Yeah, no, I changed. I went as a monk one year and I took the same costume and I made it a Jedi.
Okay, there we go. Yeah,
then the first Halloween contest, I went as a pothead. But the thing is like I forgot to get a costume. Like, no lie, that's how my mind works. And I met Carla at the Iberian Rooster, and she's like, "You're not wearing a costume," and I'm like, "Shit!" And I drove to Publix and I bought a pot and I put it on my head.
Well, I might be lazy and go as Danny DeVito again.
Gary, you should dress up like the Penguin, man. That'd be pretty cool. I think you could do that. So, Carlos, I got a question. You think the Jedi Order had the same problem the Catholic Church has? Yoda was there for 900 years. You don't think
the problem the Jedi Order had was killing the kids, not molesting them.
Well, that was just one Jedi. That was Darth Vader that did that.
You only had to do it once.
We don't want to ruin Star Wars for our fans.
What are you guys gonna go as your Halloween costumes? I haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm kind of in the same boat. I got to put some thought into it. I kind of had this idea. I thought me and my wife might do a costume combo, like from Queen of the Damned. She could play a costume and whatnot. But I don't think we're gonna go with those. I remember one year we did Fidel Castro. I was Fidel. So
that's dangerous anywhere in Florida, especially South Florida.
And she was
we got to wrap it up because I know Carlos has to get a dab and Woody's got to get a walk. So I just want to throw out before we end up today that I'm certain that I can join my two co-hosts here in wishing for an accelerated peace in the Middle East. Regardless of what side you're on, no one deserves to go through war like that for any reason.
Yep, war is hell. We need peace. Smoke more weed.